This is Justin.
And this is Haley, and you're listening to The Price of Avocado Toast.
We're a married millennial couple wanting to normalize conversations about money. We want to hear about your highs and your lows,
The do's and the don'ts on your path towards financial freedom.
All right, Toasties, today kicks off quite possibly the dopest, most symbiotic relationship to ever stem from this podcast. We have on Vee Frugal Fox. She was like overwhelmingly the highest podcast download for us in actually I think since the start of this podcast.
Yeah, quite literally. It was the most downloaded episode we've ever had, and people loved it. We got nothing but positive feedback because people relate. So welcome back, Vee.
Hi, it's good to be back. What can I say? I'm a badass, So here I am again.
We are glad to be the ones to benefit from your badassery. So thank you for joining us. If you guys don't follow our Instagram, Vee is joining us as a recurring guest. I would say finishing out the host tripod of the Price of Avocado Toast podcast. She's gonna be on to talk all things Dave Ramsey. And obviously, if you listen to our first interview, she's the social media queen. So I'm sure that there's going to be sprinkling ins of her professional world as well. But I'm super hyped that you're here. I'm stoked. Again, our listeners loved you. You have an insane following, and it's cool that this has sprouted into something bigger. So thank you.
Yeah, you guys have the perfect podcast for me to be on. As I was telling Haley while we were collaborating on all of this, I couldn't imagine a better suited pair to share these stories with, and I really think the world, especially our industry, needs to hear all of this. And I really believe what you guys are doing. I believe in what you're doing, so I'm just as thrilled to be here.
Thank you. I'm really excited, and you and I were talking, and people wanted this. They really want to hear. I know we talk about Dave Ramsey all the time, but Dave Ramsey and the whole story is a massive part of our journey and our financial freedom journey, our debt-free journey, and that's never going to change. And until people start talking, things are going to continue going the way they've been going for the last 30 years. And I think that we've been placed here to do this work. We need to start having these conversations. The difficult conversations, the controversial conversations. So I'm super excited to have you on our podcast to help us have those conversations, because these need to be normalized. People need to do it. Let's get it done.
Let's do it.
That's something that Haley's mentioned just a lot about you too, V, is that you really do lean into having hard conversations and not shying away from them. You really do a pretty good job of calling things out and being honest and genuine with difficult things. And so it's encouraging to see you kind of lead a social media push towards hey, if we've all gone through this, then there's strength in talking about it and being honest about it and calling it out. And yeah, it's just super encouraging to have you on, and I'm really looking forward to giving others a platform to share, because I think a lot of people share their Dave Ramsey stories, or they hear a podcast maybe that talks about it, but they want to also give their input, or they can relate so much. They're oh my gosh, that's a conversation I want to join in. And so to provide that opportunity for people is going to be really cool, really special.
Yeah. If all of us have gone through it, there's a common denominator, guys.
Yeah.
And again, money isn't pretty. Money is dirty inherently. And so I really do want to lean into that. I have a post going out in a couple of days about financial trauma, and I interviewed all of my friends about their experiences with money growing up. And it's eye-opening to see just how embedded our narratives are about money. And when you add that with money trauma, we all went through, the outcome is really it's sobering. And so I want to have those conversations. I want to be real about it. I'm not some influencer with a perfect life and a perfect story about money. I'm not a millionaire. I'm a regular person with regular baggage around money. And so why can't I talk about that? I know I'm not the only one. And especially when it comes to Dave Ramsey, like you said, he's part of your story. He's part of my story. He will always be the person that got me into this industry, that got me passionate about money. But those two things can coexist. Like that can be true while he's also a fuckhead. Like it can also be true. So
yeah,
I want to expose the cult leader that he is, because, you know, at first I was like tiptoeing around the, oh, he might be a cult, but like, no, he's a cult leader. And I've heard all sorts of things since going anti-Dave. I've heard, you know, it's just the popular thing to do now, shitting on the conservative, you know, like if it weren't true, you'd be brown nosing him still, or like, oh wow, you're riding the coattails of a man's career. Look at you go, feminist. And it's like, hun, tearing apart a cult leader is a feminist act. So fuck you. And talking about toxic relationships is a feminist act. And talking about the patriarchy that Dave Ramsey upholds is a feminist act. So I'm doing the work. And no, it's not because it's just a fad. So I'm just really excited to get into it, because it really gets me heated. Like I'm like sweating over here. I'm like, ah. So yeah.
So I don't really know. I don't think any of us really know what this is going to look like moving forward, but I'm super excited to explore it. And I'm asking Toasties for your feedback. We want your feedback. We want to know what you want to hear. We want to know what you want from us. We've kind of entertained the idea of bringing on other people to talk about their stories. You know, it's not just the Brownwoods family and Vee. We have a whole community of people that have been through the same thing.
Yeah.
So I'd like to do that. I don't really know. We'll just kind of see what this evolves into, but I'm super excited to just do it. So let's go.
Yeah. Let's do it.
So this week we released a graphic, which you made because you are the graphic designer here.
Yes.
It was are those things called GIFs or GIFs?
Oh, this is contested. I feel like a lot rides on this. I call them GIFs.
GIFs. There you go.
What do you call them?
GIFs.
GIFs. Hard
yeah,
G.
I really hear both. So anyway, there was a GIF of the Mean Girls. Raise your hand if you've ever been victimized by Regina George, but it was Dave Ramsey, and we got a whole lot of traction on that. And so we want to go off of the post and the stories that people shared with us and share that on today's episode. That's what we're doing today. Who's been victimized by Dave Ramsey?
Everybody.
Everybody. Yeah. So I was really surprised. Well, I guess not surprised. I was very pleased with the reaction towards, or not the reaction, the engagement. I was pleased with how involved people were on this post. And unsurprising, you know, they called out a bunch of stuff that I have a problem with. So I think the first one, though, that a lot of people had, I think this was the biggest comment, was the not investing in your retirement while you're paying off debt. So for those who don't know, Dave Ramsey in baby step 2, there's 7 baby steps, and baby step 1 is saving $1,000, which again, I could talk about that all day long. But we're talking about baby step 2. I know we don't have enough time. But baby step 2 is where you pay off all your debt from smallest to largest. You don't look at the interest rate, you just pay it off from smallest to largest amount owed. And while you're doing that, Dave Ramsey says to stop your contributions to your 401k, your 403b, your Roth IRA, any retirement contributions, which is probably the worst fucking financial advice ever. And my friend Nasima, who I have been, she was one of my first followers. Like we followed each other back in like 2016, 2017. So she's been around a really long time. She is financially intentional. She's a nurse. She's paid off a boatload of debt. Just a really great person. And she's also in our mastermind group. So she's been around. She made what did she say? $80,000 mistake by not doing this. And she had to pay taxes, because when you put your money into retirement accounts is tax deferred. And so she didn't do that. And so she had to pay $30,000 because she didn't invest.
Oh, man.
So she sent me a graphic, and in 2016 and 2017, she missed out on $39,000 each year that she didn't invest, because she had 18,000 in a 401k, 18,000 in a 457, and then a company match for 3,000 each year.
That's brutal.
So $110,000. And this is a mistake that is extremely common. Like I didn't start my investing journey until after I paid off debt.
Neither did we, really.
Yeah, and I just paid off all my debt this year.
Yeah, we still haven't completely. But okay, so when we were listening to Dave, at the time, Justin and I were both teachers. I'm no longer a teacher. Well, I'm always a teacher, but I'm not a classroom teacher at this very time. But we were both teachers, and we don't have 401ks. We've actually, I don't know about you, but I've never had a 401k. So this was like speaking French to me. I had no clue what this even meant. No one really even knows what this stuff is until they really sit down to deal with it. I have many financial coaching clients who have 401ks and don't even really quite understand it. People, there's a whole issue there of lack of onboarding with companies. But
and plus, like, investing terminology is like,
I had no idea what that really meant. I didn't really truly understand the weight of what not contributing to the 401k, what that meant. Did you feel the weight of that, Justin?
I mean, I don't think I did, because as teachers, we have to pay into the California
and we didn't really have an
teacher
option.
system. Yeah, so we didn't really have an option. But looking back on it, I think I see the weight of it now, because there's so many content creators out there who are talking about investing and talking about doing what you can, and they are really supportive of people going through the debt-free journey, and they don't shame people, and they, create graphics that are easy to understand, such as if you can save $5 a week, it's $20 a month. It's obviously not a ton. Nobody's saying that that's a ton, but you're still doing something. You're building a good habit of investing. And looking back on it now, it's like, why could that not have been what you did? Like, Dave Ramsey preaches this, like, ridiculous idea of, like, needing to change the habits instead of it being math, right? And it's like, okay, sure, but it like, investing is also a habitual thing, and you can change that by just doing like $5 a week to make it $20 a month. And he could have preached that from whenever he started to now. Like, he could have preached that.
Yeah.
But Justin, that would have been $20 towards debt.
Yeah. That would have been a really big payment on our Kohl's card. I really would have made a dent into that flannel shirt I bought.
I know. I think it's really harmful that he's not at least telling people, get your match and then hold off. Like, I think I could understand that. If you're going to invest a little bit, at least get your free money, because it's not just free money. It's part of your benefits package. I was just listening to a podcast recently. I believe it was, I listened to so many podcasts, so I'm totally not sure where this came from, but I'm going to say I'm pretty sure it came from Frugal Friends podcast, because they recently just did an episode where they were dissecting whether or not people should continue following Dave Ramsey. It was their 7 baby steps, and they went through it. And they were saying it's not even free money. Like, it's like you telling the employer, oh, it's okay. Like, you don't need to pay me what you said you would pay me. It's okay. I'll just sit back.
It's part of your compensation package. It's part of your compensation package. Like, and you not doing that is like, okay, the company matches $3,000. You might as well just take $3,000 out of your bank account and give it to the company.
Yeah.
Or just light it on fire. Like, because that's what you're doing when you don't match or don't invest up to the match. And it's just extremely harmful, because when you think about compound interest, the compound interest is really what you screw yourself over on if you don't. Time in the market is more important than anything else, because that's what really gives you steam behind your investments and behind building wealth. And when you miss out on what about people who can't pay off debt in 2 years?
Yeah.
What about those people? Like, they're just screwed. It takes you 5 to 6, 7 years to pay off your student loans of $100 and whatever $1,000. you miss out on all of that freaking money.
And someone said that. Someone commented and they said, I didn't invest for 7 years. 7 years is isn't that when you're double?
I mean,
Typically?
that's a kind of like another kind of like crude number that every 7 years like money can end up doubling. But I mean, but that's not a one-off thing. If you listen to his show, many people who come on and do their debt-free scream, like some of them are, I paid this off in 26 months. Others are like, it took us 5 years, 6 years. And you're like, oh my God. And so, I mean, like you said, compound interest, this isn't an $80,000 mistake. This is bigger than that. It's even bigger than that when you start to look at like the compound ideas. It can really be even more than that. And that's the thing that he's really screwing people over on. And he's just taking advantage of people who don't know better. Because he's their intro into the financial content space, and it's people who've been maybe mismanaging money for a while, so they treat his word like gold, which we did. I mean, we, again, and we're the lucky ones who at least had to pay into the teacher pension system, so there's something, but it's unfortunate. It's really, really unfortunate.
Yeah, it's costly mistakes that are affecting people's lives, that will affect their lives for years to come, just because he said so. And that's the harmful thing about his platform. I mean, he literally has a syndicated radio show for 3 hours a day.
Yeah,
telling people this bullshit. Imagine the people losing out. Like, it breaks my heart.
I shouldn't even say unfortunate either, because it's calculated. It's a calculated move on his part to continue to spread this stuff.
It's truly intentional and meant to leave the poor people behind.
Yeah. Like, or to continue consuming his product.
Yeah, to make him more money.
Yeah.
Anyway, there was a lot on investing. That was definitely, like Vee said, the number one thing that people were saying was harmful for being victimized by Mr. Dave Ramsey.
Yeah, I mean, it's just exploiting people who are already in a vulnerable situation and keeping them poor so that he has more power over them to buy his products, so that he can build his $200 million net worth.
Yep.
That's a true capitalist. It's amazing.
Yeah, seriously.
All right, the next one that I really want to point out was focused on side hustle guilt. And Consumed by Debt said that they were working DoorDash after their full-time job nearly daily and missing time with their kids as the trade-off. And then they would feel guilty when they stopped DoorDashing, so then they could rush home, be home with their kids, help the kids with homework, and they weren't making money every moment of the day. And I think anyone who's ever tried to pay off debt and do the hustle and grind of having multiple jobs can resonate with that. And that is a really shitty feeling. I am so sorry that Consumed by Debt had to go through that. I think you were a server. Did you feel that?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I felt like if I wasn't working and picking up shifts, that's how it was. Vee, when you were going through your debt-free journey at the start with DR, did you have extra side hustles? I can't remember if we asked you in our first interview. Like, what were you doing during that time?
I would take on consulting gigs for social media marketing. There was a point I was working I had 3 jobs. So I was doing that. I was working my full-time job, and I was doing part-time work for social media of my last employer. I sold things, I dog sat, and I want to be completely honest here. I am still, to this day, in therapy for the feeling of guilt of not being worthy because I do not produce, or I am not productive, or I am not making money. Yeah. That is something that has done more harm to me, probably more than anything. I won't say anything, because the spending is definitely something that I struggle with after I was so frugal for so long. But I would definitely say the guilt I have over not being able to make more money all the time is something that I struggle with. And I definitely, even in today in the finance influencer community, it's there's such a push on passive income. You got to make money when you're sleeping. Yeah. And it's it's so fucking toxic.
Yeah.
And it is so harmful to your mental health. I'm just so sorry for because I was an asshole during Dave Ramsey. Like, I thought it was like his way or the highway. And I used to say shit like that. I used to be
But I
like,
think we all kind of thought that because it's being shoved down your
yeah,
throat for multiple hours a day. You're listening to podcasts or you're watching the YouTube and that's all you hear
hmm
day after day after day. You start to think and feel that to your core that if you are not doing these things, then you're wrong.
yeah,
So, I
yeah.
mean,
It
it
is.
makes sense, but it's really not okay.
It's like if you're poor, you don't deserve to do anything but work to
Mm-hmm.
the bone.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you're worthy of. Until you are worthy enough to be out of debt, you will slave away at chopping away at that debt. And you can't complain. You can't be upset. You can't have guilt. You just need to work, 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 get out of debt as fast as fucking possible. That's your only goal. That's it. That's all you think about. You wake up, you think about it all day, and you go to sleep and you regret going to sleep because you're like, well, if I did this, if I pushed harder, I could get out of debt faster and then I could move on with the rest of my life. And like that is something that I will probably live with for a long time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely resonate with this comment, and I saw it, and it hurts my heart because even now, I run my own business, and I do Rover, like that's my second business. Like I
Yeah.
still haven't figured out how to not be a workaholic,
Like a
and I
hustle, hustle,
definitely
hustle.
think, yeah. And that's how it is, and that I really learned that through my DR days, and sometimes it's great, and I feel like I'm definitely in a hustling season of my life where I don't resent it. But other times, like my body was like, yo, V, like, stop, slow down. You need to just enjoy where you're at. I wouldn't listen. Like, I just plowed right through it.
You recently posted, I don't know if it was a post or a story, but talking about how you set a goal to make X amount of dollars each month from a side job, whether it was selling your soaps or
hmm
dog sitting on Rover. And
hmm
you met the goal, so you told yourself, okay, there's no reason to just keep hustling, 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 so you were able to step back. How
Right.
how much progress does that show from before? Like that's it. It shouldn't take that much effort to be like, it's okay, I'm done. I already made my $900. I'm chill. But you're so
Yeah.
brainwashed to think like it's never enough. I need more, 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 more. We have to work so freaking hard. Like you've come far, but it's
Yeah.
really sad that it had to be that
Well, even
transition.
now, like you say that, right? And it's like, I had somebody request a meet and greet with me.
Mhm.
So, like, even though I'm not in the home, like, I'm still going to the meet and greet. Like, to like set me up for next month. So it's like, yes, that is progress, right? But I still have a long way to go. And I just want anybody to listen. I want anybody listening to know, like I am what, 7 years into this journey, and I'm still struggling with it. It's a struggle.
Yeah.
I think there's a super toxic ideology just in America in general with work and rest, and
Mhm.
like people speak on that often.
Oh, totally.
And I think Dave Ramsey just exacerbates that, right?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
it's just overboard beyond that because normally we have this super toxic relationship with work and value in our lives, even when maybe we're not in crippling debt. But then when you tie your value not even into just the amount that you work, but also the number in your bank account or lack thereof, then you're getting hit from both sides. And so
hmm
if you have any type of, you know, this maybe this comes out wrong, but it's kind of the only way I can think of it. If you have any type of like strong work ethic, you can't shut it off. And so you're somebody who, yeah, 7 years later is trying to tell themselves, hey, body, you can rest. I don't need to grind myself, to the core thinking that it reflects my value.
Yeah.
And it's, again, he's capitalizing on that. He's preying on that. He's preying on those people that have that strong work ethic and tie their value to their productivity. And that's how he continues to push his product and continues to get consumers that listen to his podcast and generate YouTube ads or generate, book sales or whatever it may be. Like he's very calculated in what he
Mhm.
does and how he spreads
Yeah.
his message. And again, you have somebody who's 7 years out of it, still like, I'm still having to process this.
Mhm.
Like I'm still in therapy, y'all.
Yeah.
I talk about Dave Ramsey in therapy every week. And like I'm tearing up over here because it's like, there was for those of you who don't know, I was married to my ex-husband for 4 years, and during that whole process, that was when I started Dave Ramsey. And he says a bunch of bullshit about how it brings you together. And for me, like, this process consumed my life. It consumed me. When I say I woke up and went to sleep thinking about Dave Ramsey and debt and my number and how I could get it lower and what I could do and who I could be and life after debt, like I'm serious. I didn't think about anything else. And it is a really big reason of why my marriage was just destroyed. And there are a lot of other reasons for that. Marriage being for lack of a better term, a clusterfuck. But that was a really big reason. And I have so many regrets of, and I know like I'm the victim of it, but it's still like I have so many regrets of letting it get that far and like how just insidious it really is. I don't know. This side hustle thing really gets me, and I think it's still like triggering for me because there's still such this hustle culture that is inherently connected to money and getting out of debt and becoming financially, stable, or not even stable, financially independent. And I don't think we're ever going to be able to separate those two, but I think we can make it a healthier connection. And just not all consuming,
Yeah. Vee, when we started the journey, we didn't have Calliope yet, so we were just, a young married couple. And this may be too much information for my grandmother, but she's a good listener and she's she's wise. She gets it. We would, we were a young married couple and we owned our own home, and we would be like in the shower together talking about Dave Ramsey. Right? And you're like, what are we doing?
That's so creepy, but it's true.
So true.
But it's true.
Like, you're what are we doing right now? Like, there are a million better things we could be doing, and listeners can, generate their own ideas. But seriously, right? And so you're like, what? Yeah, you're like, what? Why is Dave, like, you're seriously like, why is Dave Ramsey in the shower with us right now? But I didn't think like that during that time. Like, I was like, hell yeah, let's talk about Dave, right? Like, it's so interesting.
So true.
That, I mean, I just really resonate with you saying, like, he preaches like it's going to bring your marriage together. And it's like, yeah, dude, with you involved, like, you're the third party
We're
here, I guess.
We're a throuple with Dave Ramsey.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh, no.
It's just ridiculous. Was your husband at the time, Vee, was he on board? Like, did you end up having those conversations very often? Did it dominate your guys' relationship at the time?
Yeah, I think it's really funny how Dave Ramsey is so Christian, but like he is the idol. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At the very beginning, he was really into it, and it did bring us closer in the beginning. Like, we had a common goal, and at the time, like, we had just moved back to my hometown, and we were just kind of like, we didn't really have a community at the time, and I think we were both kind of like just floating, looking for something. And of course, that's where the cult leaders, swooped right in. You're looking for something. I was in a really vulnerable state, realizing that I couldn't afford my life. I literally couldn't afford the house we were in. We were in like a 600 square foot house with a dog, a ferret, and 2 cats. We had no jobs, and we were living there because it was my best friend's dad who owned the house, and my ex-husband would go work on their farm to pay off the rent.
Wow.
Like, we were, like, when I say we were broke, we didn't have 2 pennies to rub together. And so I found Dave Ramsey, and it was like,
this man can help.
He can help. Like, I got myself into this fucking situation. I need to pull myself up by my bootstraps and fix it. And that was my attitude, man. So yeah, and he was all on board. He was like, not as jazzed as I was. He was like, cool, you got your thing. I'm happy for you. And he went along with it. And I think he got more and more excited as like we started paying off more and more debt. He was like, oh shit, like you actually do have it. But then by the end of the marriage, a lot of stuff had happened, which I'm not going to get into, but it was more of a, he wanted new and more, and I didn't. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he's like, all you care about is money. And at the time, like, that's all we had in common left. And so it was just like this headbutting. And if it gives you any idea of his philosophy on things, 2 weeks after we separated, he bought a brand new Jeep. And he bought a dog, and a bunch. He went on a shopping spree. So yeah, it didn't work out in the end, which I'm super thankful for, because my husband now is very much aligned with how I want to live my life and hates Dave Ramsey's guts. Like, oh my fucking God. I think he would, yeah, he just, he hates, I can't say anything because I don't want to, yeah.
Doesn't care for his soul.
He does not. I mean, he would probably commit violence. Punch him in the face kind of thing. Which, I mean, fuck, if I could, I would. But yeah, he's very much aligned with my goals and my brand, and he's super pumped about how I've grown as a person from Dave Ramsey, and how, like, especially when Black Lives Matter happened, George Floyd was murdered, and all of that shit came out with Dave. He was just like, whoa, you used to like this guy? Like, it's a long story, babe.
It's a very long story. So I kind of want to wrap this concept of the side hustle guilt up in a bow. And I work with financial coaching clients daily who are working on increasing their income, decreasing their expenses, and I constantly have to remind people, like, why are you doing this? Are you doing this just to get out of debt? Because if you're doing it just to get out of debt, the reality is you'll probably find yourself back in debt. Like, you have to have a deeper meaning, a deeper why. And we want to do something that's sustainable. If you want to do it so you have freedom to choose how you live your life and go on vacations and flexibility, whatever it is for you, that's great. But we have to make sure that if you're trying to just get out of debt as fast as you can, that you know that that is not sustainable. Like, we really, really have to find a method that is sustainable, because that's the whole point. I feel like the whole point is to fix your finances and change your whole entire financial trajectory. I believe it's possible. I believe that you can have side hustles and get it done faster, but you don't have to get it done in 3 days. Like, it's okay if it takes you 3 years or 6 years. And so often on social media, on the debt-free community, and Dave Ramsey sharing his people, like, they paid off $350,000 in 4 years. It's like, what? How did you do that? I mean, come on now.
What was your income?
Possible. It's possible. People do things.
Seriously, people are like,
yes.
Yeah, we paid off $400,000. What do you do? Oh, I'm a surgeon, and she's
I'm
a
in
talk.
tech.
Yeah, talk. I was say a top tech CEO, and you're like, okay, so you had some shitty habits, but like you also had, as Dave says, a very big shovel. Like,
right, huge shovel. But it's okay if it gets done slower. Like, we have to also live life and enjoy your life. Like, if you get to the end,
you don't get to.
You can't. You're poor.
No. That's just not. No one follows that anymore. But like, if you get to the end and you're debt free and you just missed out on 6 years of your kids growing up, was that worth it?
Yeah.
That's what you have to ask yourself. Is that really worth it to have 4 jobs and hustle just to miss out on everything? I don't think so. And I think you can have it all, just maybe it's a little slower. I don't know. That whole work 10 jobs thing, it makes me anxious because you had too many jobs for a long time.
I did. Yeah. I was coaching football, working at the restaurant, and teaching, and then I was like, I should get another job as a banquet server. It's like,
did you sleep, my friend?
A little bit, yeah. It was very stupid. It was not wise. It was not good. So
it worked, but thank God we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
Yeah.
So one of the things that, Vee, I super admire about you is the way that you call out a lot of the heteronormative, like white, for lack of a better word, like white supremacy culture. It's something that I've really struggled with, like, personally in my life, because I've always been a benefactor of it, right? Like, I'm a heterosexual, cisgender white dude who has never confronted, like, issues, and it's
You're the devil. Oh
yeah.
my God. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, no, but it's something that I've always been able to like back away from or abstain from or like sit on the sideline and be like, that doesn't look cool. But I'm really slowly trying to challenge myself into changing that, and that's something that I really admire about you. It's something that I really admire about Haley because I've noticed too that like when we've had some conversations, she's really challenging herself to do the same, and then it kind of pushes me to do more as well. And it just, I mean, it's obviously what I want in a relationship, and so
Good.
yeah, right. But this is one of the biggest things that's an issue with Dave Ramsey for a lot of people. I would argue, just his centering of the white like male dominance. There's obviously a ton of issues with his culture within his company, with hiring practices, firing practices, the way that they dig up things on their employees and their family backgrounds and their marital status and their lifestyle choices and all of these things that are just pretty gross from an employer. But one of the things that we noticed when listening to Dave Ramsey is obviously, he speaks in very coded language for the, like you said earlier, the nuclear family, right? Where it's just like
Mhm.
man, wife, 2.5 kids. Like every single thing that he's saying is in this coded language of like gender norms and
Mhm.
what he believes to be like the right thing to do. And so obviously a lot of people in the outskirts, or I should say the post Dave Ramsey world and their healing, have seen this. And one person that commented, Walsh LM 5891, that's their Instagram handle, said that one of the things that they noticed was that Dave Ramsey during the COVID pandemic was telling the universe to wake up and go out and live their lives and work and spend money like there was no pandemic happening because it was all fake. When she, who is a nurse, had to help people FaceTime their families to say goodbye multiple times a shift, multiple times a week. And that is kind of when we started to really like turn away
Mhm.
from Dave, because you realize that is centered in his white male privilege. Dave Ramsey has money. He is an entity by himself. And so he doesn't face these same issues that people face. He didn't have to question, how am I going to get money to go get groceries right now if my job shuts down? He didn't have to question what is my household going to look like if nobody's working?
Mm-hmm.
What is it going to look like if my kids have to stay home from school? What does childcare end up looking like? What about the access to healthcare or access to masks or all of these different things that is just so centered in like white male privilege? And that was
Mhm.
a comment that got shared that I'm sure many people still super resonate with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, his response to COVID was the breaking point for a lot of people because I mean, when COVID first started, everyone was like, "Oh, it can't be this bad," and then we quickly realized that it was bad. And
3 years later.
Yeah.
but but when it first started, like I'm talking March 13th, I was like, "Come on, guys, it can't be that bad. Like, get over it. We'll be
Well,
fine."
that's how
And
everybody
then
was. We were like,
quickly, like a week later, I was like, "Oh my God, we gotta strip down every time we come out from the store
yeah.
and wash our clothes and our feet and our shoes and our socks and wash the car and sanitize." And
Mhm.
then I quickly changed my tune. He never changed his tune.
No,
I mean,
he
you,
didn't.
you think he had COVID?
Yeah, I 1000% think he had COVID because there was like a 2 week break during his show where he was not on, and it was other personalities that were leading it, and it was all like very ho hum. I'm convinced he had COVID because he wasn't asking his employees to like mask up. I think they were still inviting guests in. I think they did a small company shutdown at the start of the pandemic when there was like a nationwide shutdown. I mean, sheesh, a worldwide shutdown. But then when things got lifted, I think they were one of the first. I think Tennessee was one of the first states to go back, and he was certainly going to lead the charge in that. And so that was a huge problem. And then V, just like you just said, during the George Floyd murders and the protests that came from that, like just the white male privilege that came from that was so gross. And he had one of his black personalities on and 1000% trotted him out like a show pony. Like, here's
Mhm.
Anthony O'Neill, my one black friend. And the tokenism behind it was so gross. Like, it was so gross.
Man, I just oh, God, like where to even fucking begin? I mean, he's the person who says, don't pay attention to what's happening in the White House. Pay attention to what's happening in your house.
Yeah.
That was always one of my favorite fucking quotes. I'm like, how privileged is that statement? You don't have to worry what happens in the White House because you're a white male CEO with $200 million.
Yeah.
The White House literally works for you.
Yeah.
You're not black. You're not a person of color. You're not gay. You don't have to worry about what happens in the White House, dude. But guess who does? We do.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
I've heard him say that, but I didn't think about it on that level, where it literally doesn't matter to him who the president is.
I mean, look at our world right now. I mean, look at our country in a post-Trump world. We have Supreme Court justices that heavily lean conservative, and Roe versus Wade might be overturned. I mean, one of the biggest legislations to protect, the rights of those who choose to have children. Like, are you kidding me? It's just wild, absolutely wild. And to say to not worry about the White House is so privileged, while people are absolutely getting abused because of some of the policies that stem from our former president.
Yeah. It's like if it doesn't happen in Dave Ramsey's world, it doesn't happen to anybody.
Yes.
And it's selfish, it's narcissistic, it's a cult leader.
Yeah.
It's a cult leader. And
Yep.
Just being a bisexual woman, not ever. And this was another comment. I don't know who commented, but they were like, they've never had a gay partner debt-free scream.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I wonder why. Because his base, what makes him money is the traditional life nuclear family. He's never going to stray from that base. It's marketing 101. If people are making you millions of dollars, you're not going to stray from them. So it's fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
We had an interview recently with Gabby Dunn, and they were referencing Dave Ramsey and how Dave kept misgendering people on purpose, like over and over, and completely just like disregarding the fact that, like, I think a man called in and was talking about how he kept referring to his partner as a man, like his husband or something, or boyfriend, and Dave just kept like blowing it off, and it's just the cherry on top. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Now. It's 2021. Like, that's
2022.
Oh my God. It's been a long few weeks, guys.
Yeah, it has. We're out of the trauma of 2021.
It is 2022. Like, stop.
Even better though. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, where are you? Like, I used to, suggest the total money makeover to people who were coming to me like, oh my God, you're getting out of debt. How are you doing? I used to be like, here's my Bible. And I used to be like, listen, he's super Christian. It's misogynist, but just get past that. The money advice is solid. I look back at that and I'm like, oh, Vee, no. Homegirl, no. What was you thinking?
That is literally what we said. That is literally what we said when we were trying to recruit Justin's twin brother and his wife to read the book and to take the financial
Peace University
that we led. Like, there's a lot of churchy Christian stuff that I don't think you guys would vibe with, but the money advice is solid.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, not only is he a racist, misogynist, patriarchal, just bigoted narcissist. There you go. All those words. Not only is he that, but his financial advice actually sucks ass. Like, it's terrible.
Yeah.
Like, getting out of debt and saving money isn't some radical fucking idea. Like, I don't need Dave Ramsey for that.
Yeah.
Like, there's the total money makeover, guys.
Live on less than you make.
Told you the book.
Yeah. Seriously.
And live like no one else. Peace.
Yeah.
Okay, like, now give me my millions in royalties. Like, God, his financial advice is garbage. He's garbage. Just, there are so many financial creators now that don't subscribe to that narrative and are just welcoming. So just avoid Dave Ramsey like the plague, or like he doesn't avoid the plague,
Yeah.
Well, yes.
And one of the things that we've mentioned, and you're a huge part of this, is, you know, when we started our Dave Ramsey journey, it was a one-sided relationship, right? It was transactional. We were subscribing to Dave Ramsey's, you know, thoughts and principles and his products and all of that. Dave Ramsey never did anything for the Brownwoods family, ever, right? But now we follow all these other people that check in on us, listen to our podcast, care about us as human beings and as parents, and like seeing things about our children and our lives. And that's the type of transformational relationships that we want, where it's not this like, I mean, it was so transactional. There was nothing behind it for us.
Yeah.
It was all to support him, which, I mean, again, is just like a total idea of a cult.
We had trees fall on our house. And people from the debt-free community were like, can we buy you DoorDash? Can we do this, this, and this? And it was very nice, but unfortunately we live in the trees and there is no DoorDash here. Otherwise I would have accepted it. But that's what I'm saying. Like, people came like a community.
Yeah.
To that's the difference between a community and a capitalist.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, that's the difference right there. And you know, he can talk about wanting to build a community, but the only community that he wants to build is one that lines his pockets. That's the only thing he cares about. So, and I think at the beginning, like all people, I think his intentions were probably great. I do. I truly believe that. I think in the beginning, everybody's intentions are great. I think that now he's just turned into what he is.
Yeah.
And that's why I really love the debt-free community. I mean, that was why I fell in love with it in the beginning. Is because it was community. Like, people actually care about you. People want to see you succeed. And we're all here maybe taking different routes on the same path, but the same path, you know, like, and that's really empowering. And most of my best friends are like people like you. Like, I mean, I met them through the debt-free community, you know, and we're online friends, and we've been doing this for a long time. And just the community that I have found is unlike anything else. And it's very like grassroots. Mm-hmm. It's very real. And I never got that with Dave.
Yeah.
Agreed.
1000%.
Well, this was a really fun, I always think talking about Dave Ramsey is fun because it heats me up and gets me excited, and not in a hubba way.
Not in a shower kind of way.
Not in a shower with Dave.
Dave is not welcome in my shower, and he's not welcome to heat me up in the shower.
I will say I'm in your shower now.
You are in my shower because we bought your soap for Christmas. And
I still think that is so funny.
Okay, if anyone does not follow us on Instagram, the first thing you need to do when you stop listening to this podcast, please go follow us at Price of Avocado Toast, and go follow V at V Frugal Fox. That's the first thing. And the second thing is go watch our stories, because we just explained to the Toasties that Justin bought me V's soaps for Christmas, and I bought Justin V's soaps for Christmas.
Yeah.
And I was so like, cute. No fucking way.
We're just loaded
with handcrafted soaps. It was the cutest thing, man.
They're great. So
thank you.
People need to buy your soaps.
It was just really cute. When I saw like the orders come in, I was like, oh my God, they're doing the Mickey Mouse Christmas thing. It was so cute. Like, oh, I wanted to tell you guys like how adorable you are, but I kept it under wraps.
You did good.
Well, it's clear that our values are very much in line. Like, we're like, I want to support like a friend's small business, and also like I'm appreciative of a good smelling partner. So
So you were not saying that I was stinky.
No.
Oh, good.
No. Well, no, I'm just kidding.
Well, you bought me 3 bars of soap and I bought you 1, so you must have really wanted me to scrub.
You gotta step it up, Haley.
Yeah.
I guess so. All right. Please make sure that you guys are subscribed to this podcast, because we want you to listen. And then if you are new here, please send this to someone that you think might benefit. No, scratch that. Please, if you're new or old, send this podcast to someone who you think might want to listen, because that's how we grow. It's organic growth when you share the podcast by word of mouth or share it on your Instagram stories and tag us, and we would greatly appreciate that.
Yeah, and I mean, I think especially with topics like this, you know, if you come into our DMs, like, we are here the support, the space for you to share your Dave Ramsey experiences. It has been traumatic for the 3 people on this podcast and 66 individuals on the comment section. So you're not alone. I want to keep this segment going because I think that, like Haley said in the beginning, this is really important work. And I do feel like we've been connected to talk about this, to be open about this, and to help dismantle a really horrible system in some way, shape, or form, even if it's in a micro way. Yeah. So please share your experiences.
And I want people's feedback. Please come in my DMs or Vee's DMs and let us know what you think. Did you like this? Would you like to hear more? Are you itching to share your story on the podcast with the 3 of us? We really want to hear what you guys want, and feedback is always appreciated. So just let us know.
Yeah. Even if you hated it, I'll love to challenge that and argue with you in my DMs. So come on.
I love when people disagree. It means that we've.
Be careful, because as I say, the DR trolls who are gonna Google search his name or Instagram search it. Yeah, but they'll just they sit around on a Tuesday morning like, I'm just gonna Instagram search Dave Ramsey's name and see what pops up, and I got some time to argue.
Well, she likes that.
Yeah, true.
It makes her happy.
True. We should.
It does. It makes me happy.
Yeah, it should end a comment with why do you have so much free time? Shouldn't you be out side hustling?
Perfect. Yeah. Perfection.
That's amazing.
And that's the Price of Avocado Toast podcast. We're done.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. Well, thank you, Vee. It's always such a pleasure to get to talk to you, and I'm excited for the next time we get to chat.
Of course. It was great.
Bye.
Bye.
That's going to do it for this episode of Price of Avocado Toast. As always, we are so thankful to have had this conversation with Vee. We're so hyped that she is joining the team. We're so glad to call her friend, and I can't wait to see the wonderful, wonderful things that come from having such a great teammate. We're just super grateful for the listeners. We're super grateful for Vee, and we just appreciate y'all so much. Happy budgeting.
You've got this, Toasties.
Thanks for listening to The Price of Avocado Toast. If you vibed with this episode, share it with a friend that you're comfortable having money talks with. And if you don't mind, we'd love if you could rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
If you're in need of my support as a financial coach, message me on Instagram. I'd love to help in any way that I can. Until next time.